Governor Ron DeSantis will no longer be challenging Donald Trump in the race to be the Republican presidential candidate in the 2024 election.
We can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
President Trump welcomed the news, saying he was honoured by Ron DeSantis' endorsement, and was later caught on camera saying he would officially retire the nickname Ron DeSanctimonious.
He just said, will I be using the name Ron DeSanctimonious? I said, that name is officially retired.
To be fair, Ron DeSanctimonious was a really good nickname. Joining us now, Scott Rasmussen, leading pollster, president of RMG Research, and editor-at-large at Ballotpedia, joins me. Lovely to see you. Now, what does this mean for Donald Trump? Tell us, what's the polling looking like?
Well, look, Ron DeSantis, first of all, dropped out for a very simple reason. He reads numbers well, he's data-driven, and he was absolutely right when he said there was no path forward for his campaign. And the truth is, right now, there is no path forward for anybody not named Donald Trump. In Iowa, there was this thought perhaps that there would be a group of people who liked the former president's policies but didn't like his tweeting and his other antics. But that didn't emerge. Nikki Haley is still in the race. She has big plans to pull off a surprise in New Hampshire in the primaries there. It's not. I think she's going to lose. But even if she wins in New Hampshire, the quirky nature of that primary doesn't really get her back in the game.
I mean, it is interesting to see that the more controversy he's courted, the more Donald Trump seems to have endeared himself to his fan base. Obviously, though, he does have to pull people across from the Democrats. He has to pull people across who are dissatisfied with President Biden. Maybe they're not out and out lefties. They may be somewhere in the middle. They went with Biden for a sense of security, and now they're fed up with the way that he's run the White House. Does that depend on the running mate for Donald Trump? Does he have to give them some red meat in some way in some policy announcements? How does he win over those people who are in the middle and are genuinely going to decide perhaps to vote for him come 2024 rather than dyed-in-the-wool Democrats?
Well, let's back up. In 2016, it was the first time in the history of polling that we had two presidential candidates who were disliked by most Americans. We thought that was very unusual. Donald Trump was elected president primarily because people were voting against Hillary Clinton. In 2020, at this time, I would have been saying Donald Trump was likely to get reelected. That's because I didn't know there was a pandemic coming that would throw 40 million Americans out of work. So we're talking about a situation where just a handful of votes can change. What's different now? 4 years ago, Joe Biden was the non-incumbent. People were unhappy with the pandemic and some other things, and he barely won. Right now, the odds are somewhat in the favor of Donald Trump, primarily because Joe Biden is more unpopular than he is.
Yes, but if you look at the numbers from when Trump first ran, and at this stage in the game, what was his support base like then compared to what it's like now, Scott?
Well, at this stage in the game, 8 years ago, we were all saying Donald Trump is not going to be the nominee. It really wasn't until he began to win those early primaries that it became clear he was going to be the nominee. So we don't have a clear gauge. Compared to where he was 4 years ago, he's a little further behind, and a lot of that has to do with the way he handled the loss in 2020. But still, the economy, what happens between now and next November is going to be decisive in terms of what happens in that election. I think the dynamic, and you hinted at it when you said, his fans seem to like it when he courts this controversy. I think that's because a lot of the people that support President Trump feel that the government is against them too. The more they attack him, the more they feel like, yes, we know how he feels. We just did a survey of the elite 1% in America. We did it with the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. And we found these people who are in policy positions, very influential, have a postgraduate degree, look down their nose at many other Americans. And the big shocking finding was that among most voters in America, they say we don't have enough individual freedom. And among this elite group, they say the people have too much freedom. When they say that, and when they challenge Donald Trump, voters are like, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here.
Yeah, but then I'm surprised that there aren't more voters who have said, look, I did vote for Trump last time round, but the January the 6th Capitol riots was a red line for me. I can't vote for him again. I mean, is there any evidence of that? Or have people got short memories, Scott?
Some, yes. Well, they do have short memories, which, unfortunately, as we age, mine gets shorter too. But when people were talking about this in the political context, there were several who said no. After January 6th, we can't. There's about 15% of voters who like Donald Trump's policies, but really wish somebody else was carrying them. Yeah. Having said that, people believe Joe Biden is corrupt as well. There is not this sense that it's not that politics was pure and noble and then along came Donald Trump. Voters believe that politics has been corrupt for a very long time in our country. Sure. Most of them believe Joe Biden is less than truthful. So now you've got a choice between two people that neither one of them. Look, if you ask voters, do you want the choice to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? Most voters would say, no, I want another option. But that's not where we're headed.
There are no plan Bs, Scott. Very, very briefly, what is your prediction for the election?
In the primary in New Hampshire, I believe Donald Trump is going to win and go on and roll to the nomination. For the general election, if you tell me what the economy is like next November, I will tell you who wins.
Crystal balls needed. Thank you very much indeed, Scott Rasmussen, for that.